Hey everybody, this is Paul from FPV Customs. I'm here to do a new video for installation for the Phantom 3 and Phantom 4 kit. This is the FPVLR long range boosted kit for the Phantom 3 and Phantom 4. You got your 3000 milliwatt boosters, 3000 milliamp booster battery, your charger, your bracket, and your 10.5 L8CP, R8CP half helix antennas. And I got it all set up here, as you can see. And your two, now these are new SMA cables that are going to go through the existing antenna holes. So we want to be careful when we're installing them not to bend these solder ends. You end up breaking it, you get no signal. Alright, so let's go ahead and move this aside. Now you're going to need a few tools. You're going to need a T6 to get the video cover off in the back of the controller. You're going to need a basic Phillips screwdriver, a smaller Phillips screwdriver, a pair of cutters, a pair of pliers, 5/16 wrench to tighten up your connections, and just a little popsicle stick or something to help with your cables and stuff like that. Alright, so let's go ahead and move all this out. And bring in the controller here. Brand new P3 controller. And we'll also work with the P4. It's the actual, it's the C model. Alright. Alright, let's go ahead and put this on a foam pad here. Now, first thing you're going to want to do is take off these two rubber pads, and I do it by just pulling them. And take off that little sticky stuff if you want. I usually put them back with a little bit of CA glue. Alright, set those aside. Now you're going to need to take these two little rubber feet off. Alright, now first thing you're going to want to do is take out the 4 screws here with the T6 screwdriver. Set them aside. I usually just take the screwdriver and kind of stick it in a little bit, lift it out, put that aside, and this is what now you need to disconnect this flat ribbon cable right here, and you do that by just taking your fingernail and picking up on that little tab right there. Now you're going to have to get this ribbon cable out. Just be gentle with it. I usually use this little rubber tool here. Just kind of pry a little bit on both sides. Sometimes it could be a little stubborn. Once you get it moving, it usually will come out. There we go. Alright, now once you get that off, and make sure you do that first, you're going to want to take out 4 screws right here. Now, once you get the 4 screws out and you got that ribbon cable off, the easiest way to open these up is just to take this right here, your fingers, pry in, and it opens right up. Now, be careful when you open it up, because you're going to have a power cable right there that you're going to have to take off. So, squeeze a little connector, and go ahead and set that off to the side. Now, here's the inside of the controller. Now, the first thing you want to do is take out this thumb wheel right here. Be very gentle with it. Don't you get the ribbon cable right there holding it. Alright, now just go ahead and unscrew the left joystick. Now make sure you keep these screws separate from the ones for the back of the controller because they're smaller. So just kind of lift it up there and make sure it's loose. Alright, now you're going to want to disconnect your MMCX cables here. Now, I usually do it with a little screwdriver and just kind of reach in there and snap it out like that. Same thing this side. Okay. Now since we're going to be removing these cables and antennas, you can go ahead and just cut them. Get them out of your way. Now, you got to get the antenna out here, or you could just cut it in place. It's no big deal. I usually just snip a little bit right here. And the other part you could just pull out. Okay. Now you're going to want to take this other thumb wheel off over here. Put that screw aside. That one's actually a little bit different than all of them. So make sure you set that aside. Alright, be careful with the ribbon cable there. Now, here we are. Now we're going to want to remove the 2 antennas. So the easiest way I do it is just cut the little tabs that hold it and pull it out. Now, if this was an Inspire, which I will be doing an Inspire video, you're going to have 2 cables right here. One is your 5.8. Now, on this one, so what you're going to want to do is remove the antenna. It comes over here, so you'll have a 5.8 box with a little U.FL cable, and that's going to be your 5.8. So what you're going to want to do is take a little bit of silicone off, remove it off of there. It's probably pulling straight up on it. Take the whole antenna out, and you're going to want to cut it right above where it looks like the little H. and then just tape it back inside the controller. And make sure you reconnect your U.FL cable, and that's for your 5.8 connection for your second controller. So since this is just a Phantom 3, Phantom 4 controller, we're just going to go ahead and cut this cable, get that out of there, and just go ahead and just snip them and get them out. There's one. Now you're going to want to make sure you get rid of all those cuttings in there. Because if you don't, I guarantee you when you put it back together, you're going to hear one of them. I usually use a little bit of canned air. Alright, make sure you get it all out. Careful with your ribbon cables. Alright, now, next thing you're going to want to do is remove this little plastic tab over here on the right side. Now, that's so that you don't have to end up bending your SMA cable. So, just take that out. Get that all cut. See, you want to cut that little tab off right there. Okay. Now you're going to want to just route it underneath of the joystick right here. This one's going to connect to this one. And here it's snapped together. Put the other one in. Second one snapped in. And you go ahead and put your screws back in for your joystick. Just make sure all your cables are not, none of them are underneath of the joystick. I said make sure you put the right ones back in because they're smaller than the screws that hold on the cover. Make sure you tighten them all up. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and put our nuts on the washer. Now it's important that you tighten these up 90 degrees because if you try to put this thumb wheel back here and this isn't straight up and down, it's not going to fit. Somebody calling me. Always busy. Alright, let's see here. And to whatever customer that is, I'm sorry I can't take your call right now. So go ahead and hold it. Make sure you hold it when you tighten it up because you don't want to twist that cable. And don't tighten it too tight. Just snug it up. Make sure it's square. Make sure it's parallel to the table. Same thing with this side. Alright, see what I'm talking about? Make sure they're straight like that. The nuts are straight up and down. Let's go ahead and put in your thumb wheel. Now this screw is a little bit different than all of them. Little tiny flat. Alright, make sure cables are snapped in, connections are tight, make sure your screws are all tight. And put your thumb wheel back in. Sometimes they're a little bit of a pain. Make sure you get it tightened up. Okay. Alright, so make sure everything's clear, everything looks good. Do not ever bend these solder ends. Alright, ready to put the cover back on. Now, I usually snip a little bit off this right here, just to give me a little bit of extra room when I'm putting the power cables back. Alright, make sure you hook it back up. Clicks on. Triple check, make sure everything's tight. Not too tight, everything's in. Now, it's a little bit tricky. When you put it back together, make sure you put the cables, those power cables go underneath that screw tower. And don't get them in between anything. And you gotta make sure your ribbon cable comes through, like so. Make sure there's no pieces left inside that you forgot. Little pieces that got cut off and start rattling around. Alright, let's go ahead and put our screws back in. Tight. And you're going to want to make sure you snap this in and this gets snapped in right here. Okay, now just got to put the ribbon cable back in. I kind of like to snug it over just a little bit to make it a little more flat. Don't bend it too much, don't crease it. Kind of get behind it, work it in, make sure that white line is all the way up to where it says con board, is all the way up to the board. That means it's all the way in. And last but not least, don't forget to push the tab back down to lock the ribbon cable in place. Alright, that's in, that's locked down. Put our cover back on. Rubber bumpers on. Now I usually don't put the big pads back on until after I get it all hooked up. Make sure my signal's good, because once you glue them on, they're a pain in the butt to take back off. Okay. Got power. Now let's go ahead and we'll put on the bracket. Alright, let's go ahead and mount the bracket on there. All of our antennas and boosters. The best way to do it is just to start one corner and just take a pair of pliers and just kind of pry it on like that. and put on our this back on. Flip it over without having it right on the joysticks. And I usually put double-sided tape. All right. Now we can go ahead and hook up our cables to our boosters. Snug them up. Don't tighten them to the point where you start turning the cables on the inside. Alright. Set up our antennas. Hook up our boosters. Alright, now you could use zip ties, tie to battery cables. Alright, turn them on, see we got power. Let's go ahead and turn on our controller. Turn on our boosters. Now let me turn this light down. You can see you got flashing green and you got the more solid green. So we got power on both, and we got signal confirmation on both. Looking good, looking good. What a beautiful setup, huh? FPVLR. Best antennas on the market. Look at that. That is badass. Now if you want to check to make sure everything is working, go ahead and hook up a USB cable the way I do it and plug in my phone. Let me find my phone. Alright. Turn on your, open up your DJI Go app. Go to camera mode. It's going to show aircraft disconnected, but what you want to do is go under controls, go to remote control calibration, and you can check to make sure that your joysticks are all working. And I always check to make sure all the buttons are working, the sounds, and you can also make sure your thumb wheel's working. So pretty much we're pretty sure everything's good on this. Go ahead and turn my boosters off. Turn the controller off. Disconnect that. A little snug. Alright, and we can go ahead and glue the pads back on. Like I said, I usually use a little bit of CA glue and just put a little bead, just a little bead around the outside, not too much. Just be careful. Glue that one back in place. Now, I usually only do this after I've made sure everything works. Boosters are working. All right, well, there you go.